Hi, and welcome to the Four Walls Theater YouTube channel. My name is Gina Drop, and I am the Director of Marketing and Patron Services and the Director of Development for Four Walls. And I am so lucky to have our director for upcoming production of Rites of Passage by Michelle Tyreen Johnson here with us. Sibyl Rolle has been doing an amazing job directing this virtual performance, and I cannot wait to dive into her career and more about her as an artist. A few things at the top, just business. If you're interested in knowing more about Four Walls Theater, we are a socially responsible grassroots theater that was founded at the end of March in the face of the COVID-19 crisis. Our cornerstone of our mission is pairing charitable work with performance art. So we are a theater-based company, but we pair a spotlighted charity with every show so that we can give back and donate a portion of every ticket sale to our spotlighted charity that's correlated with our production. The current spotlighted charity for Rites of Passage is Black Lives Matter, and we have Sibyl here who will be talking a little bit about why that charity is so important right now in our interview. If you would like to do donation-based tickets for upcoming production of Rites of Passage, which is this Friday, July 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific, you can visit our Eventbrite. If you search Rites of Passage, it'll pop right up. And you can learn so much more about our mission, the cast of the show, how to get a donation-based ticket, and then have access to a private Zoom talkback with the actors directly after the show, and so much more. You can follow our social media on Twitter at Four Theater, on Instagram, Four Walls Theater, and our Facebook page, Four Walls Theater as well. But now I'm going to introduce Sibyl. Sibyl Rolle is a singer, teacher, director, and writer who uses music, creativity, and innovation as a conduit for cultural exchange through the personal narrative. Sibyl has spent the past 12 years living and teaching abroad in East Africa and the Middle East. Her teaching and directing centers around empowering young people to speak their truth through storytelling. In that time, she has directed 8 plays and a myriad of scenes. Directing credits include The Crucible by Arthur Miller, The Island by Athol Fugard, The Dumbwaiter by Harold Pinter, The Lion and the Jewel by Rolle Soyinka, and The Effects of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds by Paul Zindel, Non-Go-Go by Athol Fugard, William Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew, Hairspray, The Musical by Mark Odell, and Girls Like That by Evan Placey. Sibyl Rolle attended Oberlin College Conservatory of Music, where she earned her BA in voice performance, and she currently resides in St. Thomas, United States Virgin Islands, where she is the head of theater arts at the Peter Gruber International Academy. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Sibyl. I'm really excited to get to know more about you as an artist and someone who is so immersed in theater all over the world.
Well, I'm excited to be here and to have this chat with you, Gina. Thank you for inviting.
Of course. So I'm going to jump right into the questions if you're ready.
Sure.
My first one, we're going to touch on a lot of topics. We are in a very pivotal point in history. So I am so excited to learn about this, to learn about these things as a theater artist, and to be able to learn so much more about such a powerful director as yourself. You're a really dynamic theater artist whose roots are in the vocal arts, and you got your BA, like I just said, you got your BA at Oberlin College Conservatory, which is a really prestigious program. You're a teacher, you've worked across the globe for over a decade. So you're in all of these amazing immersive theater experiences. What has it meant to you to be a Black director in a largely white theater landscape?
Well, I have found it to be very empowering because of my own history and my background being West Indian American. I have really found it important to really focus and look at plays and pieces of theater that represent the African diaspora. And so because of that, the students that I've worked with, we've looked at a lot of different political theater, especially because I think that, you know, theater is always such a great conduit for change. It's a great way for sharing what is happening currently in society. So I've really enjoyed that journey with my students. And I think for a lot of them, they've taken away so much, not just practically, but also in terms of ideologies, learning about different theories, philosophies, and, you know, really being able to apply it to their own personal lives. Often I get that message from my students when they return after they've graduated about, you know, going to that Theater 101 class and feeling so empowered because they know so much information already. They've had so much experience in my classes, and that makes me feel really proud. And I also feel like we're doing our work. You know, we're arming the young people with what is necessary to go out and actually do this social work, you know.
Definitely. I know that every teacher who is simultaneously a director throughout all of my theater programs have been so influential on me. So, I mean, the students that you have are extremely lucky. I've enjoyed just my small bit of time learning from you.
I hope so.
In the rehearsal process, you have presented the actors with a lot of questions to ponder, and it's a largely feels like the base of how you prompt character work. Some of the questions that you pose have been, how has race affected your life? How do you think that these racially charged and emotionally triggering events feel in the body of these characters? And it gives the opportunity to have discussion and also to think, you know, about what to bring to the work. As an educator and a director, how much do you feel that actors should pull from their personal experiences to form their characters, especially in a show so socially relevant as this one?
Absolutely. I think it's really important and paramount to an actor's work to be able to tap into your own experiences. I also teach English, and whenever I'm talking to my students and whenever I'm teaching theater as well, you know, we always have that dramaturgy part of the work that you have to do, going and finding out about what's happening social politically in the world so that you're able to create a context for what's happening. And I think when I'm asking the actors to actually look at these very, what might seem uncomfortable topics about how race has affected your life, what it's doing is it's causing you and the actor to actually find a place and find a belonging and make connectors to perhaps what the characters might be feeling. I also think looking just sort of at the history of our country and the pain and the anguish that we have due to white supremacist government and white supremacist ideology, I think so much of the healing that is necessary comes from this idea of knowing our own experiences and being free and feeling vulnerable enough to share them. And I think what is so beautiful about theater and what's so beautiful about the space of building theater is that coming together as an ensemble and in being able to share those experiences really might initially seem uncomfortable, but what it does is actually picks apart things so that we can figure out where we actually connect, where we have had similar experiences. I think, you know, in order to tell a story, you know, we may not know that story specifically, but to be able to find those connectors, to have that sense of belonging. I think one of the things, to be honest with you, that every human wants, every human desires is the need to belong. And I think that they also really desire and need to be heard and to be believed. And as a director, I think it's my duty to try to create a space where that can happen authentically and safely.
Definitely. I think all of those things ring true to your rehearsal process, that we've definitely seen the way that those questions and the discussions are help the actors make more dimensional characters. Absolutely. Because unless a playwright writes like a novel per character of their entire life backstory, you have to bring a bit of yourself Absolutely. To understand and round them out. And yeah, I love the questions. I think they're so beautiful and helpful. So thanks for expanding on that even more.
Absolutely. And I also think that in terms of the how these experiences affect our physical bodies is very important. And, you know, obviously it translates into how characters are physicalized and how, you know, how they are perceived, you know, from the audience. But I also think it's an important conversation for, you know, all of us, humanity, to have about what does this feel like in our bodies? Because I think, especially in America, we are so used to having this. I mean, by nature of being American, we are. It's a part of our DNA. It's a part of who we are. And I think now with all of this happening and this sort of the lens being sort of changed and opened more on the racial injustice, it's allowing people also to look at what does this feel like in my body? How am I responding to other people? How are people perceiving me as a person of color, as a woman, as a trans person? You know, I think it's so important.
Definitely. I think recognizing how you're digesting it is also part of the work of how you do better.
Yeah.
How am I responding to this? How can I do better? How can I digest it and then work with it as well? Excellent. And for future audience members, I want to shine a light a little bit on what Sibyl is talking about with this discussion of how does this feel in your body. When you watch this performance, it's really exciting because Sibyl has tackled the virtual platform like no one else and has incorporated blocking into the show, and we get to see the actors a little bit more moving around in their space. So kudos to our actors for transforming their homes. We're not in a traditional theater space, and for Sibyl to be someone who was just like coming in like, yeah, we're gonna stage this virtual play 100%. So keep an eye out for that, for the staging in Rites of Passage by Michelle Tyreen Johnson. So we're going to take a little bit of a segue with this next question that I have for you, and talk about our spotlighted charity, Black Lives Matter. We're talking about this huge social movement, the social injustices happening in America with police brutality, the danger of living in a Black or brown body, and the systemic white supremacy that it has just completely been enmeshed into our government, and how we can break free from that. Our spotlight charity is Black Lives Matter. We'll be giving a portion of every donation to that charity after the show closes. Can you, Sibyl, talk a little bit on why this charity and organization is so critical to the movement?
Absolutely. I feel like, you know, I read somewhere just recently where someone said, you know, Black Lives Matter now because they haven't mattered for the past 300 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so, so true. And what I really love, firstly, about the Black Lives Matter movement organization, is that it's founded by women. And to be honest with you, I believe in this era and this time, women are at the helm of this movement. And I think more than anything, it is really important that women band together in this sort of collective sisterhood and lead this forward. I think so often our voices have been silenced. You know, one of my friends talked about that in the video that was posted on the Instagram page about what does rites of passage mean to you, about this at such a young age, women's voices, girls' voices being silenced. Yes. And I think with the Black Lives Matter, these three women banding together and saying, you know what, this has to stop. I think one was, for me, really, really poignant. Two, I think it is so important for us to really, one, mobilize and get out to the polling centers and vote. And I think that Black Lives Matter, really, they are all about that and getting people out there to make change at the government levels, but also, you know, encouraging and empowering young people to be a part of this social change. And, you know, that's where it always starts. So that to me has been the most important thing about this organization, and just the fact that they are really looking at uplifting Black voices and really creating a platform for Black people to be able to express themselves. And on such a level, a global level, like Black Lives Matter is all across the world.
Yeah,
it's an international organization. And the fact that, you know, this sort of, this movement has been made so that Black people, Black and brown people all around the world can actually speak up, I think, against white supremacy. I really, 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 really think it's important. And so I stand behind them. And I'm glad that this production is going to be helping out that movement. Maybe some of the the leaders will get to watch it. I hope so.
That would be so amazing. I hope that if you are a member of the Black Lives Matter organization and you are watching and you want to come to the talk back, please like reach out to fourwallstheater@gmail.com. Please do. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. This movement really ties in so much with Michelle's play, Rites of Passage, a play that is about this coming together of people who've been affected by police brutality in the bodies of a legal team and a police officer who has shot and killed a young Black man who was a potential suspect and wrongly killed this person. And so with all of these things in mind, what do you find most important about Rites of Passage right now? And what do you hope that this production will inspire in our audiences?
Well, when I think of Rites of Passage personally, I think of I don't want to use the word right again, but I mean, it's this entitlement to live, you know, the entitlement to live your life as you are, as you were made, for the length that you're to be on this earth, because you exist. You are due respect, and you are due dignity, and you are due regard because you exist. And I think for so many Black and brown people, that rite of passage has been taken away in so many ways, whether it's been overtly, you know, through police brutality, through rape, through microaggressive behaviors, or through the more covert redlining, you know, all of these sorts of things that happen. And I think, you know, when a person comes into this world, yeah, they should have the entire world at, you know, at their hands. And I think for so often, you know, so many of the Black baby boys that are, you know, born, I think, my goodness, what a life they're going to lead or have, hopefully. But personally, I think the rite of passage needs to be one where everyone is able to exist and live the life that they want to, no matter who you are. So I think this play, although it was written in 2014, right after the whole Ferguson situation, you know, it's still very relevant, and it really brings about. We talked about this in rehearsal. It brings about this whole shines a light on the repetitiveness of these acts, and the fact that, you know, although the political figures might be different, although the actual incidences might be different, it's the same context. And I really, you know, our actors are young, and so I think for a lot of them, they've only known maybe a couple of these incidences, but then you start to look further and further back, and you see, wow, this has been happening since the beginning of, you know, 1619, if you will. Do you know what I mean? So I think, you know, that is partially why I also wanted to use images of the past and the photographs of the past, sort of the looking at policing through the history of policing in our country, and looking at the history of protest in our country, within the play. So I really think that, you know, it really has resounded with me and touched me in a much deeper way than I expected. You know, I remember when I first read the play, and I thought, oh, this is interesting, you know, and I kind of thought, oh, I'm not really sure. And then I started to really think about it and delve into what it actually meant to me. And I thought, wow, this is just such a powerful piece of theater. And Michelle Tyreen Johnson has done an incredible job of creating such beautifully crafted characters that really show, you know, multiple facets. And I think so often with the media, we see a very one-sided perspective of the players, you know, whether it's the victim or the, you know, the person that the cop or whoever. We see these one-sided lenses, or this one lens. And what she does in this play is to really allow us to see those other facets that oftentimes we don't see, and that the media doesn't portray for whatever reason. And I think it's such a window into, you know, sort of where we as a people need to start to look, and I mean that as a people, meaning humanity, need to start to look at each other, and actually that whole dialogue about our experiences, you know, sort of, to me, it becomes full circle.
Definitely. Michelle and I talked a little bit about empathy. This play provides such a space to be empathetic to all of these characters, and to also, how can we bring more into our daily lives and what we're doing in our decisions and how we ingest the news and these events. But yeah, I liked what you said too about the play being so relevant, and it feels almost like you're on a merry-go-round. Like we keep hitting the same stop. It's like, when are we going to be able to get off this white supremacist ride?
Right.
So continuing on with this, we are currently living through two major pandemics, the COVID-19 crisis and this pandemic of racism. How do you personally feel like these will affect the theater landscape? And as an artist yourself, how do you feel like it has changed maybe your goals, or have you reoriented due to these circumstances?
I mean, you're very right. I have to tell you, because I mean, I've been teaching in the traditional classroom for a long time. So to all of a sudden have to one day be in the classroom and the next day be on Zoom,
yeah,
with all of my students, that's been a real big adjustment for me. And I am by no means a technical savvy person. So thankfully, the young people have been very, very, very gracious, and they've handled Miss Sibyl with grace. And have put up and been very patient with my adjustments to this. But I will say what it's done is it's helped me in this process, and working with the actors and learning even more about how to use, you know, sound and images and things like that within this process has been wonderful. I mean, I think, and I would hope that at some point we can get back to the traditional theater sort of theater going experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think this new experience of having theater on the internet, you see it's live to a certain extent. But to me, I think it speaks so much to what is happening, just generationally. Social media is huge. And it is one of our modes of communication, a main mode of communication. And so to have this art form on this platform, I think it's kind of just sort of a natural progression. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently. It was like, oh my God, this could become a really big thing. You could just have, lots of theater online and you have 1 million views. So I thought, maybe. But, I think that it will become another form of theater. And, I think that we'll still have the traditional sort of, staged, traditional stage, but I think this will be here. I think it's also, it's going to open theater to an entire different demographic, because most people, I believe, have internet access. It's supposed to be a human right. And that means that people will be able to access it at home when perhaps they weren't able to actually get out to the theater, didn't have the money for whatever reasons, weren't able to actually enjoy live theater. So here's a way where you can actually have access to it and really enjoy it. So I think that has been a positive outcome from this experience. As an artist, for me, things have changed slightly. I think I've always had this, as I said earlier, I've always had this interest in doing plays that were of the African diaspora, and really looking at telling those stories. With COVID and sort of this isolation happening, and also with the racial pandemic that's been brought to light and that's happening at the moment, for me personally, I think it's so important for Black people to be able to tell their stories. I think so often they have been hushed, they have been not believed, they have been pushed by the wayside, that voice taken away. And for me, I have decided that I really want my work in theater to be about telling the stories of Black women and women of color, especially American women. And so for me, that's been a real big shift. And I've had a couple of conversations with a few artist friends of mine about, really trying to create spaces where Black women can come together, okay? And a sisterhood, creating a sisterhood and a safe space for us to really do the healing that we need to do, this ancestral healing that needs to happen, I think can only really happen in this format, in this platform. So for me, that has been sort of where I want to go. So to join Michelle Tyreen Johnson's play has been such an honor. And I really love what she's created, the piece that she's written. And I hope that we're able to create a beautiful theatrical piece that will speak to everyone. I think that is one of the things with telling Black stories, is that it is a way for us to heal ourselves, to heal the trauma. I think it's a way for people to really finally listen to what's actually been happening and what is happening. And I think it's a way for, just a collective sort of banding together of artists and change makers.
So beautiful. I really, really look forward to following your work after we're done with Rites of Passage, and I would highly recommend all of the Black women in theater to come and be on Sibyl's future projects. I wish you the best with all of that work. It's so important, and I'm so happy to hear you be so inspired by this, to really just like take this, and you make such beautiful art, and I can't wait to see what else you do in the future. And so lucky to be working with you on Rites of Passage by Michelle Tyrone Johnson.
Well,
we have a little bit of time now to take questions from our live audience. So if you are watching right now and you want to ask Sibyl something, I can get it through our chat. You just comment it underneath the video right now, and then we'll talk about it. So we already have a question coming through that says, what Black playwrights do you recommend, Sibyl?
Sorry, just a quick second. Sorry, okay. I would definitely recommend, there's a playwright, Dominique Marceau, who is wonderful. I love her work. And because I've been living abroad, I will have to be honest with you, because I've been living abroad, and most of the time when I come home in the summer, I have to be with my mom and my family in Indiana. So I haven't really been able to get out into the city and see a lot of live theater as I'd want to. But, you know, I would like to if I could. And now that I'm stateside, hopefully that'll be easier once this whole thing passes. Also, Anna Devere Smith, I absolutely love her work. I think in terms of the art of telling somebody's story, I think it's beautiful. I recently saw the piece that she did with the Alvin Ailey Dance Company, and it was just stunning. And so I would definitely check her out. Look at her work, it's all over. So you could just follow her on Instagram, and she has all of that accessible, so.
Definitely. I'd say too, if anyone in the audience really loves looking for new works and new plays, there's a huge Black, Indigenous, people of color range of new playwrights on New Play Exchange. I also have been reading a lot of Donja R. Love. Their work is really amazing. I'm trying to think too. Jackie Sibley's-Drury,
that's right,
who wrote Fairview.
Right.
I've been reading. I have a couple other things around here. I would love to talk about Black playwrights. There is, why can't I find my copy? The playwright who wrote for colored girls who considered suicide when the rainbow is enough.
There's also Adrienne Kennedy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, there's so many. Adrienne, oh yeah, our producer just said Adrienne Kennedy, Nozaki Shang. Definitely get out there. Dramatist Play Service has a huge Black playwright section that you can look up. So yeah, definitely looking into all writers of color for sure. We can take more questions. There's a little bit of a lag, I know, from where Sibyl and I are. Oh, never mind. What was your path to become a director, Sibyl?
Interesting. That's always such a funny question to me, because I never imagined that this is where I would be, to be honest with you. So I actually started off teaching. So I started off singing and just was in New York and doing a little bit of this and that, and but still singing. And then I got into teaching. And I mean, before that, I was working in fashion publishing. And I was working,
cool.
I know, funny enough, right? I was working in fashion publishing, and I got a call to go teach at just a private school on the Upper West Side. And I got called to teach performing arts. And so it started off with me teaching performing arts to second and third, fourth graders. And that was obviously that integrated arts of, you know, dance, movement, theater and music. And so I started there and then moved on, taught in the regular classroom. I taught babies 2 years old all the way to 22-year-olds. And so from there I left and I moved to Uganda. And I actually had gone there to teach in the general classroom. And because it was a British system school, I didn't make the change between the year and the grade. And so I thought I was going to go teach 4-year-olds, but in fact, I was actually going to go teach 4th grade. So I did that for a year. It was a lot of fun. And then the theater teacher there actually decided to move on, and they knew that I had this background. And so they asked me if I would be interested in coming in and teaching. And I said, sure, why not? No. And so from there, it just continued. And it's been really an amazing path, and I've had so many wonderful connectors and connections with my students, and I love it. I really, really do love it. And so what's happened is that I taught theater arts for a long time, and then I started teaching English. And so, you know, in my English classes, oftentimes I will do cross interdisciplinary and cross-curricular projects, because that's what you do.
Yeah. You bring in dramatic literature.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just did a really awesome project with my 7th graders, and you know, they did a novel project, and one of the kids read, a couple groups of the kids read The Hate U Give, which is so amazing because it's so apropos for what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And the final project was to create monologues based on one of the characters in the story, one of the dilemmas that they had. Man, I tell you, when I was reading those monologues, I was like, the kids are good. So I love to incorporate the, you know, my theater background and the theater arts world into even the regular like English classroom.
Yeah. That is awesome.
It's fun.
We'll see. Oh, okay. We have another question. So we talked a little bit about this, but maybe you want to expand on a few elements. This person would love to know, how has doing theater changed your perspective on racism, colorism, and classism?
That's a very good question. Has it changed? Well, you know, I think it's broadened my understanding because I've been looking at plays of different eras, and also within the African diaspora, you start to see similar themes, and you know, maybe you might know the history of what was going on in South Africa, but to actually read Afa Fugard play, who is an anti-racist white South African playwright actually, but his stories are all centered around anti-apartheid. And so, you know, to see those stories and to just know, my goodness, they are absolutely mirrored to the experiences of African Americans in America, although there's a 30-year gap, 20-year gap, if you will. And so that to me has been very, very eye-opening. Looking at different theory, you know, theater theorists, and looking at the work that they've done around other traumatic, you know, atrocities in the world and different people, and looking at how they've used theater to work through that trauma and to work through that hurt with people has been really a wonderful experience. You know, looking at the work of Augusta Boal, Grotowski, like those people, and just that has been very eye-opening to me. And also being able to have that conversation with my students about, you know, it doesn't just have to be here, you know, we can actually expand out and really use other people's experiences. And I think that just makes you a better actor. It makes you a better, you know, interpreter of song, because as a singer, you know, that's it's also the same, it's the same skill set, you know.
Definitely. Thank you. We'll see if we have any more come in before we wrap up. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sibyl, and for giving us such a little window into your life as an artist and how we've come to be able to enjoy your directing for Michelle's Rites of Passage. If you are watching right now or in the future and you would like to continue to be an audience member of Four Walls work, you can find our show live on this page this Friday, July 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. The show Rites of Passage by Michelle Tyreen Johnson is a limited engagement. So it will only be up on our page. It will be live on the 10th, and then it will live on this page for 2 weeks until July 24th, and then it will be taken down. So please do come and join us for the live performance or watching those 2 weeks after. Visit our Eventbrite for more information on Four Walls Theater, our spotlighted charity Black Lives Matter, how you can get donation-based tickets, and work with us maybe in the future. So please visit either our website, fourwallstheater.com, or our Eventbrite, Rites of Passage by Michelle Tyreen Johnson. And thank you so much, Sibyl, for your time and all of your beautiful energy. Thank you guys for watching.